It's me, Wendy V, and we've been on a brief hiatus because life happens. Both Rodrigo and I have been away from Clubhouse doing things in our real lives, and of course the podcast has been on hold just a bit, but we are back in action and it is summertime. There has been a lot of strife in our country in the United States recently for a number of reasons. And this episode was something that Rodrigo and I really wanted to talk about one day because schools are something that's important to me. And I know that they're important to Rodrigo as well. And when we heard about the shooting in Uvalde, Texas in May, we both were very taken aback. Partially because I had heard so many times before our country say never again after a school shooting. We were never again going to allow ourselves to be in this same place, and yet here we are. And now a month later, we've recently had some policy changes around gun reform, which is exciting, and it's the first time it's ever happened. We've often not learned from our mistakes in the past, where one of these shootings will happen, the moment will go away, and we won't get to really advocate for social change. But after this, I knew that we had to do something, and that's what we did. So members of our social impact Level Up Collective got together and started a letter writing campaign. I created a template and we got it off and running. And it's not because of that campaign that we got gun reform. There's no direct correlation at all, I can't say. But what I can say is that we did our part as a collective to influence our lawmakers and let them know what is important to us. And that is what advocacy and policy is about. So if you are a member of our collective and you are listening to this podcast, this episode is a little bit reflective for me to listen to, and I'm sure for you as well, to know that time and that space and that mindset that we were all in after this last school shooting that really took our nation aback. And I'm glad to say that we did do something about it. And now that collectively we've all done something about it, we've seen social change. And that gives us just another example of how change happens and how each of our individual experiences, our individual perspectives, and our individual actions can collectively add up to big, massive change for our society and our communities. Hey, Rodrigo. I'm going to invite my co-host, Rodrigo, to join the conversation. Let's see if he can come. He might be able to. So what I was saying on LinkedIn, because I thought I had the audio on, but I didn't have the audio on LinkedIn apparently, is that, I worked on this issue for a number of years, and the tragedy is that we actually know what works and how to prevent these things. And we need to support, schools and a whole bunch of other social issues, but we often invest in things that are not preventative. And when we do that, it takes a long time for us to see the actual outcomes of this work. And one of my colleagues who's worked on this issue for a long time just joined us. Hey, Patrick. So when I was working in the federal government on this issue, we would find that a lot of communities, wanted to do this work. We just didn't have enough money for everybody to do what they needed to be doing. And that's, building mental health supports for young people, addressing any young people who've already have gotten into some trouble and need supports, whether that's through the juvenile justice system or that's through mental health. There's a variety of other things that we need to be doing. And we would try to bring all these partners together to do this work. And it would happen, for a certain number of years while we had this federal investment and the money was flowing to these communities. And then we would notice that it would just stop. And a lot of the times, this work wouldn't scale to all of the places all over the country. And, Rodrigo can join. Yay. So we wouldn't be able to scale all these things everywhere. And when we wanted to, finally scale these things after Sandy Hook, hey, Rodrigo, after Sandy Hook, it was like, well, yeah, we want to scale these. We want to make more programs like this or whatever. But instead of investing in the thing that we knew already worked, we decided to invest in like a whole new thing. And so the investment went to a whole different new program that we were asked to create, that specifically I was asked to create. So now there are these pockets of certain states that have certain programs that help prevent these things. And there are certain communities who have done this in the past. And we have different places that have had resources, millions of dollars to support young people, but we still don't have a sustainable answer to this problem. And not only do we not have a sustainable answer, we keep seeing tragedy after tragedy happen over and over again. And we wonder what more we could be doing. And it's just really sad to me that we know where we can be investing and we know what we can be advocating for, but we don't have the power to really scale. And I think that a lot of people like us, like Rodrigo, me, people who are passionate in communities, it's going to take all of us as adults who care about young people to set the expectations for these systems that we're going to do better. We're going to help young people thrive. We're not going to accept violence and other tragedies happening in these environments, and that we are going to put our resources into prevention. So these are the concepts I wanted to talk about in this, but I also wanted to just reflect on the idea that, you know, I've been doing this work for so long that to me, it's almost desensitizing. And I went a whole day without actually even engaging with this news on purpose, because I knew that once I dug into the rabbit hole, it was just going to be all emotion, all tears, exactly like it is right now, because so many of us in this field have spent our entire careers trying to prevent another one of these things. And every time it happens, it's like a slap in the face, because you're like, why have I put so much effort into something that seems to never stop? And it's like a fountain overflowing, and it's just so overwhelming. So for a whole day, I didn't text Rodrigo, even though I knew he was super close to this area and he'll give his own reflections as well. But for a whole day, I didn't even talk about this topic because I didn't want to start crying. I didn't want to feel what I'm feeling right now. I didn't want to express my emotions to anyone or myself, because I knew that once I did and I opened this Pandora's box, there was going to be a whole lot of stuff I had to do about it. And of course, today, that's exactly what happened. You know, I had some conversations. I'm bringing in Rodrigo so we can have this podcast episode. I'm also putting up a website that's now linked in my Instagram that has resources for people to be able to download sample letters to write to their officials what exactly we should be doing. And, you know, I'm still getting the letters together, but they'll be together shortly. And so all of that to say that I completely reprogrammed my whole entire day today when I have a ton of stuff to do, because I wanted to be here to talk about this issue. And so that's where we are. So, hey, Rodrigo, it's good to catch up with you for a couple minutes. Just wanted to do this short podcast episode and hear, you had so much to say about this earlier. So yeah, what do you guys to say?
Yeah, well, first of all, Wendie, do know that the work that you do matters. Okay, don't. I know that a lot of us, we get stuck in the magnitude of the work that needs to occur, and then sometimes questioning whether the quote unquote smallness of the impact that we do has any effect. But it does. I think a lot of times that's probably one of the problems when it comes to these issues, is that we think that they're just too big to solve. I'm gonna be honest, I was Twitter raging yesterday. I was so angry. Yeah. I was so mad at the reactions of folks saying, besides the obvious thoughts and prayers stuff. And again, I don't want to sound, like an atheist, but at the same time, it's like, thoughts and prayers are great, but you need action. We need to do something to resolve this, right? But it was that there were some racial undertones, because the guy was immediately identified based on his name. And people were asking, well, is he illegal? Is he undocumented? Is, this and that? So much going on. But one of the key things that I was reading yesterday was people just saying, well, it's too big. We can't fix it anymore. There are too many guns out there. It's too much. We need to focus on this. And why don't we arm teachers instead? I say all that to bring it back to the initial thing, right? We really shouldn't focus on the macro. Viewing it as a goal and as a kind of a milestone would be great, but micro, locally, what can we do ourselves to make a change? You know, what can we do? What can I, Rodrigo Bravo, right now, with whatever resources I have, with whatever it is, what can I do right now? Part of it is a letter writing campaign, right? You're offering hey, I'm gonna set up a website. Let's make it really simple to get communication out there. Da, 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 da. You know, these are small things that we can do that will have an impact. We're getting the word out there. We're letting folks know. At the same time, we're not getting consumed by the magnitude of the problem. A lot of times, what happens is you end up doing nothing. And let's be very honest. Let's be very honest. You know, Sandy Hook, right? Parkland, you know, Santa Fe. Recently with Buffalo, the Lutheran Church where Dylan Roof murdered.
And Santa Barbara College and your
Yeah,
university and Aurora's movie
Virginia
theater.
Tech. I mean, we could
We
go
can
on
keep
and on.
going.
Imagine, Wendy, there are so many mass shootings, we can't remember each mass shooting. That shouldn't be the case.
We forgot
That
Vegas.
should not, and it sucks, right? But the greater thing to think about is, what have we really done? And that's the problem. We become paralyzed by the magnitude of the problem that we end up doing nothing. And instead, and I'm just being frank with you, we do ass backward things like setting the age limit down to 18 years old to purchase a rifle here in Texas. Hey, look, I'm a 2A guy. You know what I'm saying? I have a gun. There's nothing wrong with, you know, owning a gun, but we got to make sure that folks know how to use one. That we're giving folks that we're making sure the right folks have used one. What really does an 18-year-old need a gun for? When he's living with his grandma, I don't see it. I don't see it. If my son were to ask me right now for a gun, I would be like, nah, man, we don't hunt.
But what if he just came home with it? You know what I mean? Like he's over 18, you know, you have a son over 18. He could just go buy it
Yeah.
and literally come home with it and not, you know, not even say a thing. It's within his legal rights here in Texas, you know? It's amazing to me how, you know, young people are not even, your brain's not even fully developed at 18 yet. And so we're saying that a person whose brain isn't even fully developed and their judgment and their skills to analytically get through life are not completely developed at 18, not usually actually until 24. So we're really thinking about a group of people who we're giving weapons to without the full cognition to really understand what kind of damage they possibly could make. And even if they can fathom that and think about it, they maybe don't understand the permanency of it, which is really interesting to me that we would do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. There's a difference between a right and a responsibility. And I think a lot of kids don't get that yet. You know, when you're 18, you know, you have a right to get a gun, but you know what the responsibility is towards that gun. And so, and look, again, if you're hunting, if you have somebody, you know, I'm not against that. You know, if I go with my son to purchase a gun, right? I'm as an adult, I'm taking that responsibility for my son's gun ownership. You know, in that case, I feel, okay, look, there's a responsible adult. He's saying like, hey, I feel like my son can own a gun. You know, hopefully that adult did the right thing and has trained their kid that, you know, how to clean a gun, how to take care of a gun, how to be respectful, XYZ, right? But at least I know, hey, it's not just this child or this kid or this young man, adult that is getting the gun. It's also a parent who understands the responsibility behind that. You know, but again, this all goes to a greater issue of making sure we don't get swallowed up by the magnitude of the problem.
Oh, we might be losing you, Rodrigo. I don't know if it's me.
No, it's probably me.
Oh, we lost you. Yeah, I know you're on the road. We lost you for a second. But I think what you were saying is, you know, we all have sort of a part to play, and we are trying to do our part with our social impact level up podcast. Is that what I heard?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, I have a kind of a low bar right now, so I'll make it quick. But yeah, you know, what can we do? What our part? Our burden and our task is not to solve the problem. We have elected officials that are supposed to do that for us. But our part and our task is to help resolve the issues around my community, you know, hyper locally with my family. I was mentioning earlier, hey, talk to your kids. talk to your kids. You know, it was, oh my God. And you know this, I work as a co-parenting coach and a mediator. And I talk about this all the time, having a conversation with your kids, and how if somebody would have discussed this with the child, with the young man, right? Maybe having that conversation with him, we wouldn't be having the conversation about the kids that were killed. You know, somebody needed to take the time to talk to that kid, you know, and yes, it was terrible what he did, but man, something must have happened to the kid, and he didn't have the support system. He didn't have the confidence to go to somebody and talk to them about what was going on. Why does he feel this way? The XYZ. And it starts with our own kids, and hopefully, you know, I'm hoping that what I do with the work that I do, that I can spread that message even more now, and just say like, hey, if you don't talk to your kids, your kids are going to talk to somebody. And unfortunately, these kids nowadays, they have online forums, they have chat rooms, you know, on their Xbox, on their communities, all that stuff. And if they don't learn from you, they're going to learn from somebody else. And unfortunately, you don't know who that somebody else is.
I agree. And I think we have a comment from Psychologist 365 that says, you know, talk to your kids because you need to guide them about abstract thinking, and that problems can be fixed by solving them through talking and not guns. And I think it's important because we give kids tools to do things academically, but we don't always give them tools to do things emotionally. And when we are talking about like macro level work, which is mostly what I do, you know, there's like this saying that it's like complex problems require comprehensive solutions. And that's exactly what you're talking about. It's like there has to be multiple levels of solutions. And so there's sort of the individual level of solutions, who, you know, what we as people should be doing. And then there's the systems that we operate in and that operate, you know, supposed to be for us, but sometimes against us. And those systems also have things that need to happen in them for young people to thrive. And so, you know, I see it as like a multi-pronged approach. It's like, yes, hyper-local community, but hyper-local community needs to tell state big brother and federal big brother what the heck they want and what the heck they need, because every community is different, and even every school and every school building and every school district is different. So when you're trying to account for this on a macro level, it's like, you know, most people just get tired of thinking about it and just like throw money at the problem and do whatever we can do for whatever kids we can. And that tends to not be kids of color. That tends to not be Black and brown young people in schools that are in very impoverished neighborhoods. And so even if we're talking about a school full of immigrant children, or we're talking about a school full of inner city kids, a lot of them wouldn't have access to things they need anyway to achieve academic excellence, yet alone emotional excellence. So it's kind of like, you know, what the heck are we doing with our investments? We need to figure it out, because we're not supporting the majority of people in this country now. As we know, the country is increasingly becoming more Black and brown. So to me, it's just like, we have to expect all of this to change, and we also have to do our individual part at the same time. And I think that's where people are looking for, you know, more and more answers and coming to this conversation. I'm trying to catch up with the comments too. So Marlon said people take a driver's test and they need to do that to drive, and we need a program about gun safety. And I agree. And then Psychologist 365 is also saying in India, not everybody gets a gun. It's very costly, and the government checks them for things like bullets and how you spend your money. And so there are other ways to coexist with guns, and there are other ways to coexist with policies that support people. Even if you look at Spain's drug policy is completely opposite of the United States. But you see these other countries, and we're not changing anything. We aren't changing even how we elect people or who we elect. We're still doing the same thing. So that's where I get really upset. And I think because, I don't know if Rodrigo, you probably didn't see my LinkedIn, but these were, and I think I took it down because the audio was really bad. But a couple of things I shared was, when you're talking about how complex this can be, this is my pictorial that I created to show people like how complex this work gets. And I literally had to go into Microsoft Word Art
with arrows and people showing them what their roles are. And this is the level of, as a federal official, what I had to do to explain to people how to change systems, because it is so specific. And one of the things that happened after Sandy Hook is I was asked to move away from my program work and to move into more macro work to support the nation's conversation around mental health. And so one of the things we created was a different version of that, which I showed on LinkedIn as well, which is my giant infographic, which is here in Spanish on mental health. And this is kind of showing like community facts about mental health. And so all of these things the government has done in the past after other school shootings, I'm sure they'll do something again. But if we don't tell them what's actually helpful to us or what we want, they're just going to continue to do random things. And I love the time I spent during the national dialogue. It was a great conversation. We did have a lot of wonderful things happen, but we also didn't have follow-up on the commitments we had from partners. We didn't have follow-up on our efforts. We had no metrics. So all of these things now, reflecting on it at a macro scale, I think we can do better, and we should expect better. We should actually expect measurable change after this and expect the government to make investments that we can see, demonstrated in our communities. And so that was just another thing that I shared on my LinkedIn that I'm pretty sure didn't get heard by anybody.
Work that probably needs to
so
get
anything
shared.
else you want to share, Rodrigo?
Yeah, hopefully my signal, I'm still having a rough time with the signal, but hopefully you can hear me. The work that you do.
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Great. Again, the work that you're doing, it really does make a difference, right? Folks can see that work. Others will benefit from that work. And I think that's really the key. What can we do on our level? Again, I really don't want folks to stress themselves out learning how to do something new. Everybody has a skill set. Everybody has a tool that they're really good at. Somebody might be really good at, hey, I'm good at programming. Okay, how can we use that? How can we, make that a skill that we can use to help grow the mission that we're doing? There's no need to learn a new skill or go out there. Hey, maybe the best thing is, hey, let's get a phone bank going. Let's call our senators. Let's call our representatives. Everybody's got a phone. Everybody, or most people have a phone. Whatever tools you have or skills you have, use those. Don't when we look at some problems, sometimes we say, well, I don't know how to do this, so I can't do that. That's not the point. The point is, if we galvanize all of our collective skills and talents, everybody can contribute in some type of way. I think that's really important, and I really want to stress that to folks, because one of the things that I tell people is yes, communicate with your kids, communicate with your sons. Let's be honest, Wendie. All these school shootings we're seeing are by men, by young men, young boys. Okay, why is that? Why is that? There's a ton of reasons, but the main critical point that I want folks to know is that it's young men. They're getting caught up in philosophies and thoughts that are not healthy, that are unproductive, and that can possibly lead to some very destructive behavior. So if we focus on that and we say, hey, look, we got to talk to our kids. We got to talk to our sons, and that starts with our own communities on a hyper-local level, where we say, hey, I'm going to make sure that my boys are okay. Today, I spoke to my sons. Now I have a very good dialogue with my boys, but I still made it a point to check in with them. I told my son while I drove him to school, hey, blah, 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 about this? Yeah. And then afterwards, I still send him another text. I tell him a text and I said, hey, Papa, just want you to know I love you. If you need to talk, let's talk, blah, 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 right? But now I'm going to extend that out. I'm going to go ahead and reach out to my cousins. I'm going to reach out to my nephews, and I'm going to reach out to them directly. And I'm going to start that conversation. Now, look, imagine your uncle, right? Uncle Rodrigo, right? Texting nephews, Joaquin, right? Out of the blue with a fucking text. He's probably not going to respond kindly to it, or he's going to think it's awkward, right? But I'm laying the foundation. I'm letting him know, hey, man, if you got some shit you want to talk to me about, let's talk about it. The key is consistency, doing it over and over, once a week, check in. My whole point with all this is that we can start making the change we want to see with our own families and with the folks that we already are in community with. and not let the gravity of the situation, the enormity of it, kind of, suffocate us. No, start with your family, start with your friends, start with kids in your community, and make those changes right now, and start them with just conversation, talking about, hey, XYZ, hey, we're gonna do this, hey, we're gonna do that, because I think that's where we can make a lot of good change and really impressionable change, especially with kids that we may not even know are having an issue, but we can't know that
Yeah.
unless we start that dialogue.
And what's interesting about that is, that's your natural, just fatherly sense to that's the answer. But scientifically, that's actually one of the answers. The research shows us that for young people, one of the biggest protective factors against any kind of negative outcomes, whether that's violent behavior or mental health issues or substance use, anything like that, all of those, the biggest protective factor against that is actually a caring adult relationship. And it can typically be with an adult who's outside of like your family unit and not even a parent. So, anybody, a cousin, uncle, whatever, too, can contribute to that. But it also could be like a coach or assistant coach or a teacher or somebody like that who, really connects with these young people. But each of us as community members could be that person. We could all mentor young people. I mentor, younger women, not quite high school women, but I could go and mentor, school age kids very easily in my community. And, there's so many things that each of us can do that, letter writing is almost the easiest one. You literally go on your representative's website. There'll be an email address, or there will be a button that says contact us. You can take these letters that we're putting out and copy and paste them in there, alter so that they match what your community actually needs, and then you push send, right? And like, that's super duper simple. All of us copy and paste every day in our jobs all the time. So it's not like this is a skill you need to acquire to copy and paste something into the website, right? Like, this is what Rodrigo was trying to say earlier. Like, these are skills we already have that we can use as adults in the community, whether you have children or not. If this is something that has impacted you or made you feel some sort of way in the last 24-ish hours, it's important that you act on that and you give yourself some action to take, because that helps you also emotionally feel better about, how we're contributing as people into our society. So I wanted to encourage people again to get back to the idea of, if you can call, you can write, you can do so many other things. You can go have your own live on any of the platforms that you're on. You can talk about this issue. You can raise awareness. You can ask for mental health services for our young people. Like, all of these things are things that each of us can do as an adult, but it's going to take you taking the action. And in our collective, we talk about inspired action. And how do we take inspired action every day? And what happens when we all take similar inspired actions is that it compounds the energy together. So if all of us are taking action to write letters, or taking actions to make the phone calls, that pressure, the immense pressure of all of our energy together, forces change to happen. And so that's why we have to take these steps, and we have to do these things and take time out of our days, even if we didn't plan to do this, because we have a moment. And when these school shootings happen, the moment goes super fast. So we have a moment right now where we can take action to create that pressure and to use our energy wisely. But as I know, because I've seen it time and time again, and you guys have too, in 3 months, in 2 months, in 6 months, we will not be talking about this. And it is tragic that that will happen, but it will happen. Until the next time it happens, we will not talk about this again. And so I want people, and April, who's my partner in crime on this, we're getting together to get these letters together, say, hey girl, we are trying to make sure that we use this moment to create the correct energy to create the change. And if we ignore this moment and we don't take action, and we wait till 3 months later to even push send on our email, the person who we're trying to send that email to will already have forgotten about this incident. So in the next 48 hours, if you have even a minute to call your representative, or to send an email, or to do anything, do your own live, to put a post somewhere, anything you can do will be appreciated by all of us together as a collective. So that's the other message I wanted to give today, is just little actions collectively together make big change. And this is our opportunity to do that for this topic. So anything else you want to say, Rodrigo?
No, I completely agree with you. I remember there was a quote. I believe it was Rahm Emanuel, and I know he got skewered for it, but he always said, "In every crisis, there's an opportunity." And I know that sounds very, cynical, maybe, when people think about it, like, wow, but it really is true. And I think when you look at it in a positive sense, you'll say, hey, look, what can we positively do from this event? If we truly are inspired by that and say, hey, you know what? I don't want this shit to happen again. Okay, well, what am I really going to do about it, though? Am I just going to rage tweet? Am I just going to, yell into the ether? Am I just going to wring my hands? And well, no, let's actually do some positive movement. Yeah, oh, man. There was a tweet yesterday by a politician who said that they were fervently raising their hands in the air with thoughts and prayers. And I thought to myself, I said, that's not what people are asking for. Look, it's a great sentiment, but nobody wants that shit no more. We've been talking about that forever. What we want is action. And I think it is an opportunity right now for us to really galvanize folks and say, hey, look, let's really commit to something right now when we have this pain in our hearts. Let's convert that into some positive impact, some actual motion, and let folks know. In Houston, for example, there's going to be a convention, actually. The NRA is holding their annual convention in Houston. In fact, the last guy who held office is going to be there, as well as the governor of the state of Texas and the lieutenant governor of the state of Texas. We're going to crash it. We're going to go over there. And when I say we, I'm talking about myself and some friends. We're going to go over there. There's already planning a big protest over there for that. And that's part of it, making sure that we let folks know that, hey, our voices are not going to be silenced. We're going to be there. We're going to let people know we're not going to put up with this shit no more. Now, what kind of action, right? People always ask, well, what solution is this? You know what? I'm not here for that. I'm here for y'all to move, do something, because what we're doing right now is not working. Do I have all the solutions? No. Can I propose some solutions? Yes. But I want these folks to move. I want these folks to actually say something about it. And I noticed that the attorney Miss Williams is saying some representatives have opted to not attend. That's a smart move on their part, okay? Because right now people are hurting, and if you're going to go to a gun conference, regardless of how correct you are in your stance on the Second Amendment, on gun owners, it doesn't matter about none of that stuff. People are hurting right now. And if you're going to go to a gun lobbyist conference and talk about the importance of guns when people are hurting, it just shows how detached you are to the reality that millions of Americans are facing right now. And especially folks like myself who are parents. I'm 45 minutes away from the tragedy. This hit home, and I know that it's hit home for so many parents throughout the United States and other tragedies that have happened in other communities. So yeah, I agree with you completely, Wendie. Let's make sure that we capitalize on this energy, that we make sure, like, hey, let's not just, get mad and feel a certain way. Let's turn that negativity, that pain that we have, into something positive, and make it have impact in the communities and in the world around us.
Yeah, and I don't know how. I think Instagram could let 3 people up. I'm pretty sure, right? Rodrigo, is it 3 people?
Yeah, you could actually have 4 people up, in fact, if you want.
Oh, 4 people up? Oh, okay. So if anybody wants to join us, feel free to let us know in the comments. But I invited April up if she wants to chat, because April had some stuff that she was saying earlier that really made a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I see that Domo just joined us as well. He had a great Twitter Spaces yesterday, where he was just being honest. He was being frank. And I know that he's doing the work out there as well for trying to, just push some common sense, reform when it comes to legislation or when it comes to representatives and such. So, yeah, it's really important that we get these messages out. And again, capitalize on the fact that, hey, people are feeling this way. Let's fucking do something about it. Don't just sit on your ass right now and just be like, oh, my God, and this and that. No, if you really feel strongly about this, let's get out there and do something about it.
Absolutely. And April said she can only listen right now, but feel free to join if anybody else wants to join of our crew. This is definitely a collective meeting. It's not just me and Rodrigo. We're just here to hold space as usual for people who are, like us, socially conscious entrepreneurs who want to talk about these kinds of issues and want to do something about these issues and know that we have the mental capacity to do that. And we have this space we can create in our lives to take a pause at this moment and use some of our energy and our time for this issue. And I think that, when I was reflecting, some of you guys might have missed this conversation. I used to work in this space at the federal government. And when I was reflecting about this, it was interesting because I had been packing all my stuff to move from Texas to Maryland. And I came across this box of all of these things that I had done while I was working in this space. And I literally just the other day put the box aside and said, that's such a past for me experience. It's not my experience right now in the business that I'm building. And then this came up and it just smacked me in the face. And it was like, this is not part of your past. This is never part of your past because this is part of all of our present. And all of us are impacted by these issues. Whenever a school shooting happens, we all have to be ready to contribute, if we can, our action, our time, our energy to really stopping this. And that's what it's going to take. And it's a generational problem. It's not going to be easily solved. So that's where, at least for me, it's our generation, all of us who are on this Instagram feed, we're all about the same age. It's our issue now to resolve. Like, this is our bag. We have inherited this bag from others, and now it's our time to try to solve it, right? And rather than try, I would love for us to actually do. And I would love for people to learn from my experience and learn from the work that I've done on how we can actually help young people in our communities. And it does start at home. It starts with those family connections and building supportive environments in schools and out of schools for young people. And the one thing that I'm really concerned about is summer is coming up. Violence goes up in every community in the summer. When young people do not have things to do, young people like to get into mischief. That's what happens. And it doesn't take a school shooting for a whole lot of brown kids to be shot on a Friday night, right? And so it's really important for everybody, we're thinking about these issues, that yes, school shootings show us violent incidents that we don't want to happen, but every day in our communities, violence is happening. And we have the opportunity right now to start this conversation and continue it in the future. And one of the places we have to continue it is, how do we make all of our environments in our communities safe for young people, whether it's a school or anywhere else they're going to go. And summer, like I said, is one of those times where we all need to be thinking about it as a community. How do we provide the right supports for young people so that they're getting the things that they would normally get in the educational environment, food, whatever, still as a summer, throughout the summer, but then also that they have, emotional supports and connections and the opportunity to socialize as well. So there's so many pieces to this. And if any of that is exciting to you, anything Rodrigo and I have said, any of the options of how to help, if any of them seem exciting to you, I encourage you to use your energy and use your time towards that, because we all have different passions, we all have different skills, and it's going to take all of us weaving those together to really create a comprehensive solution. So that being said, thank you guys all for being here today. I know folks have hopped on and off. I'm going to post this. I'll share the video with Rodrigo. It'll also be a podcast episode. I haven't talked to Rodrigo about it, but I assume that we're going to rip the audio and put it on the podcast this week, Rodrigo. So just letting you know that we're going to put
Promise,
this out.
yes, 100%.
Timely fashion. This is important. This is the now. But yes, but also just to recap, on my Instagram and on my website, there will be a place that you can go. It is the URL is really focused on advocacy and action. And so it's Wendie Belos, and then the next part of it is advocacy and action, but I'll have it on my website on the front page. And this is where you can go to get access to the letters, but I also break down what advocacy looks like at the local level, the state level, and the federal level. So if you've never done any advocacy efforts before, or you don't know exactly what you're thinking about or you're joining in on, I'm giving you some background before you decide to go sending letters to people randomly and you don't know what you're sending. So letters should be out later this afternoon. If you sign up on the email list, it'll be emailed to you, and anybody else who's watching this after, if you sign up on my website, it'll be directly given to you after you sign up. And what you want to do with that is either snail mail it. You just copy paste into a Word document, pop in the people who are your local officials, and you can send it by snail mail or you can send it by email, which is much, much faster. And I encourage you to do that. If you should still have a fax, you could probably fax it somewhere too, but I would say definitely email is the preferred route. But if you happen to call your representatives, you can also use the letter as bullet points for talking points of what you should be advocating for. So there's multiple purposes for the letters. Make sure that you download it. And yeah, that's it for today. Anything else you want to say to the peeps, Rodrigo?
No, I just want to thank everybody for coming through, and always, Wendie, thanks for setting this up, and just providing an outlet and an avenue for folks to share, and hopefully we can get some people, just involved, and we can move from there.
Yeah.
I do encourage everybody, if you do see some local activity, check it out. Go out there. Maybe there's a protest, maybe there's a conference, maybe there's whatever the case may be where there's dialogue. Please make sure that you go out there and check it out and make your voice heard, because somebody's voice will get heard. And if you feel like, hey, I want to make sure that my points are spoken and that somebody takes the time to listen to them, the only person that can make that happen is you. So I definitely encourage folks to get out there and be active and make shit happen.
Rodrigo is right. This is our time to make shit happen. As the people who are adults in this society, most of you listening to this podcast, I can guarantee are over 18. We have the opportunity to make change, to be the change, and to actually force policies to change. And that's part of what this Gun Reform Act is about. I wanted to also call attention to something that gets muddied a little bit, which is the relationship between mental health and violence. A lot of the time when we have school shootings or mass violence incidents, we don't know how to understand where the person who perpetrated the violence, where their mindset was, and what their mental health status was, and any prior mental health issues they might have had. We often think that mental health and violence are really, really correlated together in a very simplistic fashion, and they're not. But we do know that supporting the mental health of young people as they develop and really putting a lot of effort into supporting schools is what we need to be doing right now. And so it's very exciting to see that we do have a fair amount of money coming in this act to help young people and their mental health in schools. And there's a lot of ways that you as an individual can support that as well. You could be a mentor, you can read to young people, you can do all kinds of things, because those are just two examples from Rodrigo and I of what we do to support our communities and the next generation of people that we want to see succeed. So there you have it. This is our episode about never again. Every time when we say we want social change, we have to take action. We have to get off of our asses and actually do something. And when we do, we will see the change that we are looking for. I promise.